"I'll give you part of my company if you can translate this," mocked the CEO to an immigrant intern lady. "Before we continue with the story, tell us where you're watching from and how old you are, and subscribe to our channel to receive new stories every day that will touch your heart. I hope you enjoy the story." The air in Sterling Innovations was thick, almost suffocating, with the kind of tension that made the polished chrome and glass of the executive floor feel less like a bastion of innovation and more like a pressure cooker. It was 3:47 p.m. on a sweltering Tuesday in late July, and the New York skyline, usually a source of inspiration, seemed to mock the chaos within. In his sprawling minimalist office, all sharp angles and muted tones, Alexander "Alex" Sterling, the charismatic and notoriously demanding CEO, paced like a caged tiger. His usually impeccably styled dark hair was now slightly disheveled, a few strands falling across his forehead, a rare and telling sign of his escalating fury. Each measured step on the cool marble floor echoed the frantic beat of his own pulse. Sterling Innovations, a titan in cutting-edge AI and sustainable tech, stood on the precipice of a groundbreaking deal. A partnership with the enigmatic island nation of Xylos, a move that promised to revolutionize global energy consumption and catapult Sterling into a new echelon of wealth and influence. But the path to billions had hit an unexpected, infuriating snag. The core of the agreement, a thick parchment-like contract, lay on the gleaming glass table in the conference room, utterly indecipherable. "This is absolutely ludicrous. Nobody here speaks Kicha," Alex bellowed, his voice echoing off the sound-dampening walls, making the few remaining executives flinch. He slammed a fist onto the table, the vibrations rattling a discarded espresso cup. Marcus Thorne, the CFO, a man whose tailored suits always seemed a shade too tight, exchanged a worried glance with Victoria Vance, the COO, her perfectly coiffed blonde bob rigid with silent anxiety. Their collective discomfort was palpable. "Mr. Sterling," Robert "Rob" Chen, the head of the legal department, began, his voice laced with a weary resignation that grated on Alex's nerves. Rob, usually unflappable, looked visibly deflated. "We've tried every high-end agency in the city, every contact. No one has an available interpreter specializing in that dialect. It's exceptionally rare, sir." Alex let out a bitter, humorless laugh, a sound that rarely escaped his lips and chilled the air even further. His piercing blue eyes, usually alight with sharp intelligence, now blazed with frustration. "A company of our stature, poised to secure a multi-billion-dollar future, and we're being held hostage by a piece of paper, by a dialect. Unbelievable." He ran a hand through his already messy hair, the silk tie feeling like a noose. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. He pivoted abruptly, his expensive Italian leather shoes squeaking softly on the polished floor, and strode out of the opulent conference room. His destination, the intern's bullpen. It was a vibrant, often chaotic open-plan space, buzzing with the low hum of computers and hushed conversations, a territory he rarely, if ever, frequented. The intern pool was, in his mind, a necessary but ultimately disposable component of the corporate machine. His gaze swept across the rows of eager, often overwhelmed young faces until it landed on her, Elena Rodriguez. She was tucked away in a quiet corner, almost camouflaged, amidst the towering stacks of binders and the blinking lights of monitors. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple, practical bun, and a pair of unassuming glasses framed intense, observant eyes that seemed to absorb every detail around her. She was meticulously organizing what appeared to be an endless cascade of loose documents, her focus so absolute it bordered on meditative. Her fingers, long and graceful, moved with a quiet precision. "You!" Alex's voice cut through the ambient office noise, a sharp, imperious summons. It carried a strange blend of impatience and a distinct hint of mockery, an unspoken dismissal of her position. Elena's head snapped up. Her movements were fluid, unhurried, utterly devoid of the nervous flinch Alex usually elicited from junior staff. Her gaze met his, calm, unwavering, a surprising depth in their dark pools. "Yes, Mr. Sterling." Her voice was soft, clear, carrying just a trace of an accent he couldn't quite place, but no hint of fear. He didn't waste another second. With a swift, almost aggressive motion, he tossed the archaic contract onto her makeshift desk, the heavy pages scattering across her organized piles of paper. "I'll give you a share of my company if you can translate this right now. No games, just tell me what it says." A collective gasp rippled through the intern section. Every head in the bullpen snapped up, eyes wide with astonishment, then curiosity, then a flicker of pity. The offer was absurd, a CEO's cruel, desperate joke. A share of Sterling Innovations to an intern. It was unheard of. The silence that followed was so profound you could hear the distant hum of the servers. All eyes were glued to Elena. Elena's gaze fell to the scattered papers. Her fingers, so recently organizing, now moved with a delicate precision, gathering the pages. She held the top sheet, her slender digits tracing the unfamiliar script. Her eyes, magnified slightly by her glasses, moved across the lines with a familiarity that was utterly astounding. 1 second passed. 2, 3. The hushed anticipation in the room stretched taut, thick with unspoken questions. Her brow furrowed not in confusion, but in contemplation, as if she were unraveling a complex tapestry. Then, slowly, deliberately, she lifted her head. Her dark eyes met Alex's, a flicker of something unreadable in their depths. Her voice, when it came, was soft, almost a murmur, yet it resonated with an undeniable authority. "This is not just Quichua, Mr. Sterling. It is a very specific dialect from the mountainous region of Chimaltenango, a dialect rarely seen outside of its indigenous communities." She paused, allowing the weight of her words to settle, and then continued, her voice gaining a quiet confidence. "And what it says here, it is an exclusivity clause. It states that the entire agreement will be rendered null and void if certain environmental conditions regarding the rare Zilosian glow flora are not met, specifically if its natural habitat is disturbed beyond a precise geological threshold. A crucial condition, I imagine, that your other translators likely overlooked." Alex blinked. Once, twice. The sharp, arrogant edge that usually defined his expression dissolved, replaced by a mixture of outright shock and a dawning, unsettling intrigue. The air in the room, previously thick with tension, now vibrated with a different kind of energy, one of sheer disbelief and growing wonder. The quiet, unassuming immigrant intern, whom he had barely registered until this very moment, had just unraveled the very heart of the mystery that had crippled his elite team, and what this astonishing revelation meant for the multi-billion-dollar deal, the future of Sterling Innovations, and perhaps even his own perception of the world, was, at that precise moment, utterly breathtaking. The revelation from Eleanor hung in the air, a palpable wave of astonishment that rippled through the intern bullpen. Alex, usually so composed, felt a genuine jolt. He wasn't accustomed to being outmaneuvered, least of all by someone he'd dismissed as just an intern. The silence that followed Elena's precise, calm translation was so profound, you could almost hear the collective gears turning in everyone's minds. Her unexpected mastery of the obscure Quichua dialect didn't just save Sterling Innovations' multi-million-dollar deal. It opened doors to an even more lucrative partnership, turning a potential disaster into an unprecedented triumph. In the days that followed, the entire company buzzed with the news. The tension that had choked the executive floor now vibrated with excitement, but amidst the celebratory hum, Alex felt a new, unfamiliar sensation: intrigue. He found himself subtly observing Elena. She didn't gloat, didn't seek out praise. Her movements remained as understated as ever, her focus unwavering as she continued her mundane intern tasks, seemingly oblivious to the seismic shift she'd caused. This quiet dignity fascinated him. The very next morning, Alex found Chloe Davis, his ever-efficient personal assistant, at her desk, organizing his impossibly complex schedule. He leaned against the doorframe, his voice softer than usual. "Chloe," he began, watching her deftly swipe through a tablet. Chloe looked up, her keen eyes immediately sensing the shift in his tone. "Yes, Mr. Sterling? I need a complete profile on Elena Rodriguez," he stated, his gaze distant, lost in thought. "Everything. Her education, work history, family background, even her favorite color, if you can find it." Chloe's eyebrow arched, a silent question about the unusual request, but she simply nodded. "Right away, Mr. Sterling." She had already noticed the subtle yet distinct change in her boss's demeanor since the Kitches incident. It wasn't just professional admiration. There was something deeper brewing. Soon, Alex began inviting Elena to increasingly complex translation projects, pulling her away from filing and into the hallowed halls of executive meetings. She found herself sitting at polished mahogany tables, not serving coffee, but interpreting intricate negotiations. During one such meeting with a notoriously demanding Japanese client, Elena translated simultaneously, her voice a low, steady murmur in his ear, shifting seamlessly between Japanese, English, and back again. Alex watched, mesmerized. He saw her subtly, elegantly correct Robert Rob Chen, the senior legal translator, on a nuanced point of Japanese business etiquette that could have derailed the entire discussion. Rob, initially stiff, offered a surprised, almost respectful nod. A genuine sense of respect bloomed within Alex, a feeling he rarely extended to anyone he hadn't personally vetted and elevated. One humid afternoon, Alex summoned Elena to his sprawling corner office. Sunlight streamed through the panoramic windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Elena stood rigidly before his imposing desk, her posture impeccable, her hands clasped loosely in front of her. "Elena," Alex began, his voice surprisingly gentle, "I need you to understand that your contribution has been invaluable, truly. You've saved us millions, opened new markets. What can I do to make you consider a more impermanent position here?" He gestured vaguely, indicating the vast opportunities at Sterling. Elena met his gaze, her dark eyes clear and unblinking. "My ability to remain in this country, Mr. Sterling, depends entirely on my student visa, and I came here to work, not for favors." Her voice, though soft, carried a subtle undercurrent of reserve, a delicate but unyielding barrier that she consistently maintained. Alex noted it, a fleeting sense of frustration mixed with burgeoning admiration pricking him. Days later, Chloe delivered Elena's dossier. Alex locked his office door, the heavy oak swinging shut with a soft thud, and settled into his ergonomic chair. He plunged into the documents, page after page, each revelation a jolt. Elena Rodriguez wasn't merely a bright linguist. She was a renowned academic in her home country, specializing in historical dialects and ancient texts. But the deeper he delved, the more chilling the narrative became. She hadn't just left her country, she had fled. She'd been forced to escape after bravely exposing a massive corruption scheme involving a powerful, ruthless political figure. Her whistleblowing had cost her everything: her career, her savings, her reputation. It had left her marked, forcing her into the shadows, and placed her student visa under constant, precarious scrutiny. She had lost it all to uphold her integrity. With each line, Alex felt his initial arrogance crumble. It was replaced by a profound admiration for her unwavering moral compass. coupled with a sharp pang of guilt for his own superficial judgment. He saw the sacrifices she'd made, the quiet strength she possessed. He began to attempt personal overtures, subtle at first. He offered to cover the tuition costs for her younger sister Sophia, whose university bills Elena quietly paid. He even suggested connecting her with top immigration lawyers to secure her future. But Elena, though her gratitude was evident in a brief, almost imperceptible softening of her gaze, always refused, politely but firmly. "Mr. Sterling, I just need work. My dignity isn't for sale." Her words, laced with a familiar mix of pride and a raw, hidden pain that Alex was only now beginning to perceive, kept him at arm's length. She clung to her independence, haunted by the fear that her past might resurface, and terrified that any personal involvement could inadvertently endanger Sophia, her most precious charge. Alex felt a growing frustration. How could he possibly breach this invisible wall she'd built? How could he make her trust him when the world seemed to have taken so much from her? He realized with a startling clarity that he was beginning to care for Elena in a way he had never anticipated. Her polite refusals, while entirely understandable given her history, struck him unexpectedly, stirring a desire within him to break down her defenses and truly understand the woman beneath the guarded exterior. The elevation of Elena to an informal yet undeniable position as a special translation consultant felt like a silent revolution within Sterling Innovations. Her quiet competence had carved out a permanent place for her in the most exclusive circles of the company. Her presence at high-level meetings became commonplace, a stark contrast to her previous role as an unnoticed intern. Clients from Paris to Tokyo, often jaded by corporate formality, were not just impressed by her seamless fluency in myriad languages, but by her uncanny ability to navigate subtle cultural nuances that Sterling's existing, highly paid team of translators often missed. She'd smoothly interject a crucial cultural reference or recommend a specific phrasing that resonated deeply with the foreign delegates, turning tentative nods into firm handshakes. Elena's charisma, a quiet force rooted in her authenticity and deep knowledge, was palpable, and Alex found himself frequently observing her from across the vast conference tables. A strange, unfamiliar warmth would spread through him, a feeling akin to pride that he couldn't quite rationalize. It was a sensation he hadn't realized he was capable of, a subtle shift in his once purely transactional view of the world. However, such a meteoric rise, especially for someone who had begun at the bottom rung, did not go unnoticed. Nor was it welcomed by everyone. Marcus Thorne, the CFO, a man who believed in rigid hierarchies and old money, watched Elena's ascent with a deepening scowl. Beside him, Victoria Vance, the COO, her designer clothes and perfectly sculpted features masking a cold ambition, shared his disdain. To them, Elena was nothing more than an immigrant intern who had somehow seduced the CEO with an unexpected stroke of luck. One morning, during a brief lull in a board meeting, as Eleanor deftly handled a complex query from a Saudi investor, Marcus leaned in towards Victoria, his voice a low, venomous rumble. "Look at our miracle linguist," he sneered, his eyes narrowed. "Didn't take her long to leap from organizing papers to sitting at the boss's table, did it?" Victoria offered a tight-lipped smile in agreement, her icy blue eyes raking over Elena from a distance, assessing her with a calculated chill. "A significant risk to the company's reputation, if you ask me," Victoria murmured back, her voice barely audible. "And to Alex's judgment, it seems." The subtle attempts to undermine Elena began to escalate, transforming from mere glares into deliberate acts. Documents that should have reached her desk mysteriously went missing, causing her to scramble hours before critical deadlines. Meeting schedules were altered without her notification, leading to awkward missed appointments. Sarcastic comments, thinly veiled as helpful advice, became a common occurrence. "Are you sure you understood that nuance, Elena?" Marcus would ask, his tone dripping with false concern after she'd delivered a flawless translation. Alex, however, wasn't oblivious. His finely honed instinct for corporate power dynamics, sharpened by years at the top, immediately detected the subtle undercurrents of sabotage. He recognized the classic playbook of executives feeling threatened. He began to protect Elena more actively, instinctively. He would subtly correct Marcus in public, his voice firm, leaving no room for argument. Elena's interpretation was precise, Marcus. Any misunderstanding is on us, not her. He'd seize every opportunity to praise Elena's work, subtly reinforcing her value to the entire executive team. Elena's insights on the cultural context saved that deal, he'd declare, his eyes meeting hers across the room, a silent message of unwavering support passing between them. One particularly relentless Tuesday evening, rain lashed against the skyscraper windows, casting long dancing shadows across Alex's office. He and Elena were the last ones left, immersed in a complex, high-stakes project with a German client, the details of which demanded absolute precision. Elena, usually indefatigable, found herself utterly drained, her shoulders slumped, a weariness seeping into her very bones. Alex, noticing the slight tremor in her hand as she reached for another document, felt a pang. "You should head home, Elena," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle, cutting through the rhythmic tapping of keyboards. "I can handle the rest from here." She looked up, startled, her eyes wide behind her glasses. "I need to finish this, Mr. Sterling, and Sophia will be arriving soon." The mention of her sister, Sophia, seemed to inject a renewed, though fragile energy into her. Alex simply nodded, a silent understanding passing between them. Without another word, he reached for his phone and discreetly ordered food delivery, something he remembered Eleanor mentioning she liked during a brief, unguarded conversation weeks ago. When the warm, aromatic boxes arrived, he set them on the large conference table, pulling up a chair opposite her. "Just to keep the energy up," he stated, a faint, almost shy smile playing on his lips. Strictly professional, of course. As they ate amidst the quiet hum of the office, the usual corporate formality between them began to thin, replaced by a tentative ease. Alex, unprompted, started to talk about his own early career struggles, the relentless pressure, the moments of doubt he rarely shared with anyone. Elena listened, a soft, almost imperceptible tension leaving her shoulders. Then she spoke. She told him about Sophia, about her younger sister's unwavering hope for the future, about how a university education was a dream Elena fiercely fought to keep alive amidst their financial struggles and her own precarious situation. She spoke of the sacrifices, the long hours, the constant underlying worry. Alex listened, truly listened, for the first time. He saw a fleeting glimpse of the woman behind the protective armor, a woman with an immense heart and an unyielding, unbreakable strength. He felt an attraction that transcended mere professional admiration, something that utterly destabilized him and made him yearn to know more, to break through the final vestiges of her carefully constructed walls. The shared meal, the unexpected camaraderie, had forged a subtle yet powerful connection, chipping away at the emotional ice between them. Alex, in that moment, felt something deeper stir within him, an emotion he hadn't quite named, but that was undeniably profound. The seed of a genuine romance had been planted, vulnerable yet resilient, even as the dark clouds of Marcus and Victoria's machinations continued to gather on the horizon, promising a storm that would test everything. The once vibrant atmosphere at Sterling Innovations, once a place of cautious optimism for Elena, was rapidly turning sour. The subtle slights had morphed into deliberate acts of sabotage, each designed to chip away at her newfound standing. What began as an email mysteriously vanishing from her inbox evolved into crucial documents evaporating from her desk, leaving her scrambling, heart-pounding minutes before a critical presentation. Then came the accidental computer malfunction, a sudden, irreversible crash that devoured hours of meticulous translation work, forcing her to stay until the late hours, fueled by stale coffee and sheer defiance. Elena felt the oppressive weight of Marcus Thorne's and Victoria Vance's stares, their gazes sharp and predatory, like vultures circling their unsuspecting prey. They believed they were cornering her, but what they didn't know was that Elena had faced and survived far worse horrors in her life. One evening, as the city lights began to twinkle outside the office windows, painting the sky in hues of deep indigo and amber, Elena stepped out of the Sterling building, the weariness of the day heavy on her shoulders. Her sensible heels clicked softly on the pavement, a solitary sound in the bustling metropolis. Reaching her modest, second-hand sedan, she pulled open the driver's side door. Tucked neatly under a wiper blade, she spotted a pristine white envelope. Her brow furrowed. She hadn't been expecting mail. Inside, neatly folded, was a crisp, clear photocopy of her student visa application. Her breath hitched. A thick, ominous red pen mark highlighted her status. Political asylum seeker, process pending. Her blood ran cold. This information was highly confidential, buried deep within secure government files. The way it had landed in her car, outside her workplace, was not a coincidence. It was a cold, calculated threat. Someone was digging into her past, and it wasn't to help her, it was to destroy her. A tremor of fear, sharp and unfamiliar in its immediacy, snaked through her, chilling her to the bone. The very next day, a palpable tension hung in the air as Alex convened an emergency meeting in the main conference room. The usual murmur of corporate chatter was replaced by hushed whispers. Sterling Innovations had just inexplicably lost a smaller yet strategically vital contract, one that had seemed all but sealed. The official explanation: a vague communication breakdown that by some convenient twist of fate had been traced back to a phase of the project Elena had overseen. Marcus Thorne, his face a mask of feigned concern, leaned forward, his voice dripping with faux politeness. "Mr. Sterling, with all due respect, perhaps it's time to re-evaluate the intern's position." Victoria Vance, ever the silent partner in his machinations, nodded vigorously, her eyes fixed on Alex. Elena's past, her current visa situation, they pose an undeniable risk to the company, Marcus pressed on, his voice gaining momentum. An unstable employee, a potential liability that can certainly deter investors. Alex felt a slow, simmering rage begin to bubble in his gut. His jaw tightened. He knew, with an instinct honed by years of cutthroat business, that something was profoundly wrong. This was too neat, too convenient. After the meeting, which ended with Alex making no definitive decision, he stormed into Chloe's office, his expression thunderous. "Chloe," he began, his voice low and intense, "I need answers. Have you found anything concrete on Marcus or Victoria? Anything that connects them to the missing documents, the accidental system crashes in Elena's workspace?" Chloe, usually a picture of calm efficiency, looked grim. She met his gaze directly, her voice serious. "Yes, Mr. Sterling. I've been monitoring the network logs. There are highly suspicious patterns, unusual access times, unauthorized deletions. It all points to their access credentials and the malfunction on Ms. Rodriguez's computer. It wasn't an accident. It was a disguised cyber attack." The truth landed on Alex like a physical blow, a lightning strike of horrifying clarity. His own executives, men and women he had trusted, were not just jealous, they were actively sabotaging Elena, not because of her incompetence, but out of their own fear and deep-seated prejudice. But the ultimate crushing blow came hours later. As the afternoon light faded into dusk, Elena received an official notification from the Department of Homeland Security. Her heart pounded in her chest as she opened the crisp white envelope. A formal investigation had been opened into her visa status, citing new information that questioned the veracity of her asylum claim. The name emblazoned on the document sent a cold shiver down her spine. Inspector Ramirez, an immigration official notorious for his inflexibility and relentless pursuit of perceived irregularities. The threat of deportation was no longer a distant possibility. It was terrifyingly, undeniably real. Elena felt the crushing weight of the world descend upon her shoulders. Her darkest nightmares, the ones she'd fled across continents to escape, were vividly, brutally back. The precarious life she'd painstakingly built, her relentless struggle to protect Sophia and forge a dignified future in the US, seemed poised to shatter into a million pieces. The office, once a beacon of opportunity, now spun around her in a dizzying haze of fear and despair. Clutching the crumpled official document in her trembling hands, she ran, propelled by a desperate urgency, towards Alex's office. She burst through his door, her breath ragged, tears welling in her eyes. "Alex!" she gasped, her voice barely a whisper, thick with terror and raw vulnerability. They're going to deport me!" The profound vulnerability in her voice, so uncharacteristic of the fiercely composed woman he knew, was like a searing blade to Alex's heart. He sprang from his chair, his eyes wide with horror, seeing not just his brilliant consultant, but the terrified woman beneath. A wave of protectiveness, fierce and undeniable, washed over him. He felt her pain, her fear, and in that moment he knew he would fight for her no matter the cost. The news of Elena's immigration investigation and the baseless accusations against her spread like wildfire through the glass and steel corridors of Sterling Innovations. It was fueled by the venomous whispers of Marcus Thorne and Victoria Vance, whose smug satisfaction was thinly veiled. They moved through the office like silent predators, their eyes gleaming with the triumph of a plan meticulously executed. But Alex, his heart a frantic drumbeat in his chest, didn't hesitate. He found Eleanor still trembling in his office. The crumpled notice of investigation, a stark reminder of the looming threat. He reached for her hand, his touch surprisingly steady. "I won't let this happen, Elena," he declared, his voice firm, resonating with a deep, unwavering determination she had never witnessed from him before. His blue eyes, usually sharp with calculation, now burned with a protective fire. He immediately called down to the legal department, his voice booming through the intercom system. "Get Rob Chen in my office now. Tell him to drop everything." Rob, usually a man of cool logic and strict adherence to corporate protocol, entered, a frown etched on his face. "Mr. Sterling, what's so urgent?" Alex wasted no time. "Elena is being targeted. Her visa is under investigation, and Marcus and Victoria are behind it. I want every resource this company has, every lawyer, every paralegal, focused solely on her defense. Make this stop. Now." Rob's skepticism was palpable. He shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Sterling, this is an immigration matter, a personal issue. It could expose the company to..." "To what, Rob?" Alex cut him off, his voice dangerously low. "To doing what's right. Elena saved this company. She's the backbone of our international future. I don't care about the optics. I care about justice." Rob, witnessing the unyielding conviction in Alex's eyes, swallowed hard. This wasn't just a CEO's directive. It was a personal crusade. "Understood, sir," he finally conceded, his voice laced with a newfound respect. "We'll mobilize immediately." The legal battle began, a brutal and exhausting ordeal for Elena. With the help of a shrewd immigration lawyer provided by Alex's firm, Elena was forced to relive her nightmare. The sterile, unforgiving conference room felt like a courtroom, every word a potential trap. In a tense preliminary hearing, Inspector Ramirez, a man whose reputation for inflexibility preceded him, sat across from them, his gaze cold and accusatory. He presented new evidence, vague allegations designed to discredit Elena's asylum claim, twisting her past into a narrative of an opportunistic schemer, even a criminal. Elena maintained her composure, her face a mask of quiet strength, but inside she felt the insidious grip of fear gnawing at her. Her thoughts constantly drifted to Sophia, the sister she had risked everything for. What if this fight meant losing her, losing their future? Meanwhile, Alex faced a simmering rebellion within the executive ranks. Marcus and Victoria, emboldened by the immigration drama, escalated their attacks in board meetings. Your unwavering support for a problematic intern is tarnishing Sterling's reputation, Alex, Marcus thundered during one particularly heated session, his face flushed with indignation. Our stock is taking a hit. If she's deported, the company will be irrevocably linked to an immigration scandal. I'm thinking about integrity, Marcus, Alex retorted, his fist slamming onto the polished mahogany table, making the water glasses jump. His voice, usually controlled, vibrated with raw emotion. Eleanor is innocent. She is being persecuted for her courage, and I will not abandon someone who not only saved this company, but is being chased across continents for doing the right thing. His unwavering loyalty to Eleanor was a profound shock to everyone present. He made it abundantly clear that he was willing to put his own position as CEO on the line, to risk everything for her. In a calculated strategic move, he also quietly instructed Chloe to discreetly leak certain details about Marcus and Victoria's internal sabotage to specialized business media outlets, subtly shifting the narrative and shining a harsh light on the true villains within Sterling. Parallel to the looming legal fight, Elena made a decision that solidified her resolve. The fear that had once paralyzed her was now channeling into a fierce courage. With Alex's unwavering support, she carefully accessed old contacts from her days as an academic, reaching out to trusted colleagues and lawyers from her past. She unearthed the meticulously kept documents she had guarded for years, irrefutable proof of the deep-seated corruption that had forced her to flee her homeland. In a bold, audacious move, a true gamble, she delivered these explosive files to federal authorities, igniting a separate, sweeping investigation. This new inquiry promised not only to expose the corrupt official who had hunted her for so long, but also to definitively unmask the insidious conspiracy that had festered within the very heart of Sterling Innovations. The truth, after so many years shrouded in shadows, was finally irrevocably about to burst into the light. The air thrummed with the intense suspense of the legal battle and the fight for Eleanor's freedom. Her profound courage in confronting her deepest fears, exposing her dangerous past to the harsh glare of public scrutiny, and Alex's unyielding determination to risk everything for her, created a powerful emotional climax. The audience, gripping their seats, watched with bated breath, desperately hoping that justice, at long last, would prevail for Eleanor. The dust, which for weeks had obscured clarity and choked the very air of Sterling Innovations, finally began to settle. Weeks of grueling legal battles, whispered accusations, and explosive revelations had given way to a quiet, undeniable truth. The federal investigation, meticulously fueled by Elena's undeniable evidence, those carefully preserved documents, the desperate, audacious move to expose her past, had confirmed, beyond a shadow of a doubt, the sprawling corruption in her country of origin. This vindication, a beacon of light after years of darkness, washed over Elena, leaving her breathless with a sense of liberation. Inspector Ramirez, the once inflexible embodiment of bureaucratic indifference, now, under the undeniable weight of overwhelming proof and public scrutiny, formally withdrew all accusations. Elena's student visa was not just secured, it was reinforced, elevated to a permanent residency status. She was at long last free and safe. A deep, shuddering breath escaped her lips, the first truly unburdened breath in years. Within the gleaming, albeit temporarily tarnished walls of Sterling Innovations, the consequences for Marcus Thorne and Victoria Vance were swift and merciless. The strategically leaked information from Alex to the media, combined with irrefutable evidence linking their conniving sabotage to internal system breaches, culminated in their immediate dismissals. Their termination letters were issued with a cold corporate efficiency that mirrored their own ruthless ambition. The company, which for a moment had teetered on the brink of a public relations nightmare, now emerged stronger, its reputation forged in the fires of integrity. It boasted a new, compelling narrative, that of a CEO who had championed justice, even when it meant risking his own empire. Alex, now more firmly entrenched in his position than ever, his authority solidified by the respect he'd earned, wasted no time. His office, a sanctuary of glass and polished steel, seemed to glow with a different, softer light when Elena entered. He had summoned her, not with the urgency of a crisis, but with a quiet sense of purpose. Elena noticed the subtle changes in him, a newfound calm in his demeanor, a gentler light in his intense blue eyes. "Elena," he began, his voice a low, almost intimate rumble, his eyes shining with a complex mix of pride for her and something far deeper, something that made her heart flutter. He rose from behind his massive desk, walking around it to stand before her. "You didn't just save this company from financial ruin, you taught me the true meaning of courage, of integrity, of what it means to fight for what's right, even when the odds are stacked against you." He reached for her hands, his touch warm and firm, drawing her gently closer, their fingers intertwined, a silent acknowledgement of the battles fought and won together. He looked directly into her eyes, his gaze holding hers captive. "I can't see you as just an intern anymore, Elena, or even merely a consultant. You're so much more than that. I owe you more than that." A soft, knowing smile touched Elena's lips as he continued. "Do you remember that ridiculous joke I made on the day we first met, when I said I'd give you a part of my company if you could translate that document?" Elena's smile widened, a rare, genuine spark of amusement dancing in her eyes. "How could I forget, Mr. Sterling? It was quite the introduction." His grip on her hands tightened imperceptibly. "I was mocking you then, Elena. I'll admit it. But I have never been more serious in my life. I want you to accept the position of Director of International Relations, a brand new department we're creating, specifically for you to lead." He paused, taking a breath, his voice softening further, filled with an emotion that made her pulse quicken. "And more importantly, Elena, I want you to be a minority shareholder of Sterling Innovations." Elena blinked, once, twice, in stunned disbelief. The words hung in the air, resonating with an almost surreal significance. It was the materialization of a promise born from mockery, now brought to life with profound respect and undeniable admiration. This gesture, coming from the man who had once so carelessly underestimated her, was more than a business offer. It was a profound acknowledgement of her intrinsic worth, her brilliance, her unbreakable spirit. In that moment, the last of Elena's carefully constructed barriers, the walls she had built around her heart for self-preservation, began to crumble completely. She felt truly seen, deeply understood, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, undeniably, completely safe. "Alex," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, barely a breath. Tears welled in her eyes, blurring his face. It's a life-changing offer. He pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her, his chin resting gently on the top of her head. It's just the beginning, Elena. The beginning of a new life for both of us. A life where you'll never have to hide who you are again. His words, quiet and sincere, were a promise, a vow. The profound emotional peak of this moment enveloped them both. A powerful wave of hope and the intoxicating promise of a love that was just beginning to blossom, unbound and beautiful. The sleek, modern facade of Sterling Innovations now gleamed with a new kind of brilliance, one not just of innovation, but of integrity. Under the shared leadership of Alex Sterling and Elena Rodriguez, the company underwent a profound transformation. Alex, with his ambitious vision and strategic acumen, and Elena, with her unparalleled expertise in cultural relations and obscure linguistics, formed an unstoppable duo. Their synergy was palpable in every glass-walled conference room, every international video call. The new International Relations Department, once a mere concept sketched on a whiteboard, blossomed under Elena's meticulous direction. It became a vibrant hub, attracting top-tier talent from around the globe. Individuals who valued not just the cutting-edge work, but the ethical foundation upon which it was built. Sterling's global influence expanded in ways Alex had only dared to dream of, forging connections that transcended mere business, touching cultures with a respect previously unseen. Even Rob Chen, the once skeptical head of legal, now a loyal and vocal ally, publicly lauded Elena's genius, often remarking in meetings, "Ms. Rodriguez doesn't just translate words, she translates worlds." But far from the corporate gleam, Elena's life flourished in ways even more profoundly significant. Her younger sister, Sophia, once a fragile responsibility, now blossomed, radiating a newfound security and confidence. Inspired by Elena's unwavering resilience and remarkable journey, Sophia thrived in her university studies. Alex, the man who had once mocked Elena with a careless offer, had seamlessly integrated into their lives, becoming an almost familial figure. He offered Sophia unconditional support, not just financially, but through genuine mentorship and encouragement, seeing in her the very future Elena had fought so fiercely to protect. He'd attend her university presentations, quietly beaming with pride, a stark contrast to the distant, arrogant CEO he once was. One tranquil late afternoon, as the setting sun painted the New York skyline in hues of fiery orange and soft violet, Alex and Elena found themselves on the small, yet impossibly cozy balcony of Elena's apartment. The city, once a daunting labyrinth of uncertainties and fears for Elena, now unfurled before them like a welcoming embrace, a testament to the home she had truly found. Alex pulled her closer, wrapping his arm securely around her waist, their bodies fitting together with a comforting familiarity. "You know," Alex murmured, his voice a low, intimate rumble against her hair, "I often think about that day. The one where I tossed you that contract, back when I thought I was being clever, this untouchable CEO." He chuckled softly, a sound filled with both amusement and a hint of self-deprecation. Elena leaned into him, her head resting against his chest, a soft, contented sigh escaping her lips. "And I," she countered, her voice a gentle tease, "thought you were just another arrogant rich man trying to test me. Another obstacle to overcome." A shared laugh bubbled between them, a sweet melody of memories and shared triumphs. His grip tightened, his voice growing more serious, tinged with a deep, heartfelt sincerity. "You changed me, Elena, profoundly. You made me see that true power isn't measured in profits or status or how many deals you close. It's in integrity, in courage, in the unseen battles people fight, and in the people who truly matter. You taught me to be a better man, a more human man." Elena shifted, tilting her head back to meet his gaze. Her eyes, usually so guarded, were now brimming with a love she had never dared to imagine feeling. "And you," she reciprocated, her voice a tender whisper. You taught me that not all power corrupts, that there are men who use their strength to lift others up, to fight for justice, to create something truly good. You taught me to trust again, Alex, to dream again, to believe in a future I thought was lost to me. He lowered his head, his lips finding hers in a tender, lingering kiss. It was a kiss that sealed not just a passionate romance, but a partnership in every conceivable sense of the word, a union of minds, of spirits, of purpose. An immigrant intern and a millionaire CEO, brought together by fate, by a forgotten dialect, and by a challenge made in jest that had unexpectedly become the very foundation of an extraordinary, unbreakable love. Years unfurled, each one deepening their bond. Alex and Elena Sterling became renowned not just as the dynamic leaders of Sterling Innovations, but as visionary philanthropists who revolutionized their industry. They built a company founded on unwavering ethics, radical inclusion, and genuine respect for every individual's unique contribution. And whenever the subject of their improbable love story arose, Alex would always flash that familiar, charming smile, a mischievous glint in his eye as he recalled that chaotic, fateful day. I told her I'd give her a share of my company, he'd often quip, his arms circling Elena's waist, pulling her close, and in return, she gave me my entire world. We want to hear your opinion about this beautiful love story. Let us know what you thought of this plot full of emotions and surprises. Tell us your name, where you're watching from, and what score you would give this story from 0 to 10, a story that touched hearts. And if you enjoyed the storyline, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the amazing new stories coming up. See you next time.